post office scandal, and the organisation's former boss has handed back her CBE and said sorry to the hundreds of victims of that scandal. Paul Venables was head of the post office when around 700 postmasters and mistresses were wrongly prosecuted for fraud and theft after a faulty computer programme showed money was missing when it wasn't. And meanwhile, the Justice Secretary is in crunch talks with judges to find a speedy way to deliver justice for the hundreds of victims who want their convictions quashed. And a reminder of that news just in to GB News, Sir Ed Davy has told us that he will not give up his knighthood following criticism of his past role in the post office scandal. Well, joining me now in the studio is political editor Christopher Hope. And I believe, Chris, you have a fresh breaking news line on this post office scandal story.
Yeah, Martin, the government is quite keen to get ahead of this. Of course, Paula Venables returning her CBE is her decision. The government's been very clear they can't force her to do it. They can't even really tell the Honours Forfeiture Committee what to do. So they'll be quite relieved that that's happened. But that hasn't been the government's doing. What the government is up to, they are looking at ways to do a unilateral pardon of sub-postmasters. There could be a bill published as soon as tomorrow or Thursday, which could see them wipe clean the slate for the 700 sub-postmasters found guilty, because the concern is that by delaying and by going through each case one by one, which is the way you should do it, it'll take far too long to do it. So right now, that could be about to happen. We're hearing that's where the government's leaning towards some kind of mass pardon for sub-postmasters.
And Chris, after many, many years of being ignored, after being brought to the forefront by this excellent drama, this is very, very swift legal resolution. This is very, very good news.
Well, it shows the power of drama, but it shows the power of journalism. I've written one of my previous lives before I came to GB News. I worked at the Telegraph. I was one of the first to write the articles about Paula Venables' CBE back in the last decade. Why did she have it? She was given that CBE for service to the post office after some of the convictions were quashed. There was a reckoning here for the establishment which ignored the complaints from sub-postmasters for years and years and years, and didn't ignore. These aren't people who could be dismissed. These are of questionable character. These are high, upstanding pillars of a local community who handle money for local people, give out pension money, are respected, but were not believed by the state, by the establishment, by Whitehall. It is a complete disgrace. That is understood now by the government. It has taken an ITV drama to put viewers in the shoes of people accused of wrongdoing. We've written about it repeatedly, talked about it, raised it as journalists, but frankly, it took a drama to make that happen. Sir Ed Davy, I should say, has told GB News today that he will not be handing back his knighthood. Of course, he was given a knighthood when he stood down from the government in 2015 after the coalition. He was Post Office Minister 2010-2012. He's turned fire on the Post Office itself.
OK, Chris Hope, thanks for that. Stick with us, please. If you're just joining us, breaking news there from Chris Hope. The government hopes to pass a bill maybe as soon as tomorrow or Thursday to totally exonerate all of those involved in the post office scandal. Moving very, very swiftly. And joining me now to discuss this further is Bob Seeley, Conservative MP for the Isle of Wight. Bob, thanks for joining us in the studio.
My pleasure.
In Westminster. You must be delighted by this swift justice, quick and nimble moving here by Rishi Sunak.
Yes, well done, Rishi, for doing it. But also, look, it wasn't just a journalist, but it does show the power of drama. James Arbuthnot, he's the MP who championed this because one of his postmistresses in his Hampshire constituency said, I'm being wrongly accused. And Nadeem Zahawi when he was on the relevant committee. So it also shows actually the dedication and the work of backbench MPs who raised this as a case. And sadly, it also shows how useless Ed Davey was as a minister. The man constantly hid behind his officials, and he's still blaming them now. So well done, Arbuthnot, well done, Nadeem, and well done people like yourself as well, Christopher. And I'm glad that government's doing the right thing on this now.
On that issue of Ed Davey, 34 times the man has demanded that other people get the chop, go for the high jump.
Yep.
19 times are those directed towards Boris Johnson. Do you think he should do the right thing and do that himself?
Yes, I do. Why doesn't Ed Davey lead from the front? He spends his life calling for the resignation of other people. He was shown to be a deeply second-rate, deeply inadequate minister, so he should now do the decent thing. And look, give credit to Paula Venables. She's giving up her title. I think Ed Davey should do much the same.
I should say what Sir Davy is saying in response to, were he in the studio, he won't hand back his knighthood. His spokesman said as Ed said many times, he wishes he'd known what we know now. He adds, it's right that Paula Venables gave back her CBE. She was at the centre of a conspiracy of lies against the victims, the public and the minister of all parties. As Alan Bates, the original sub-postmaster who took the action, said yesterday, Ed was one of many ministers who was misled and lied to by the Post Office. That's what Ed Davy would say.
He was, but the whole point about being a minister is having judgment. There isn't much a politician does in terms of the inherent characteristics. So what makes a decent politician? Somebody who's articulate, but also somebody who can listen, somebody who makes good decisions, but somebody with basic sense of judgment. And what really gets me about this is that even now he's basically saying, I was misinformed by my officials. As you were saying earlier, there is an absolute lack of curiosity, which I think is absolutely dreadful. And actually, just one other thing on the Post Office now, they still don't give a good enough deal to the postmasters and postmistresses, because I'm always in touch with them and they are always struggling to make a living because the amount of money they're getting is simply not good enough. So as well as actually using this as a wake-up call for people like Paula Venables and for people like Sir Ed Davy, actually the Post Office should now will take this opportunity to look again at postmasters and postmistresses and how they are remunerated and work specifically with the banks so that in places that no longer have banks, where the postmasters and mistresses are taking cash and taking money from small businesses, to make sure the banks, well, all the money they're making, a small amount of it, but larger than it currently, goes to those people.
Chris, the government said today £148 million has been handed out in compensation to sub-postmasters. 150 million has gone to lawyers. Now, how is it right that lawyers get more than victims in this?
I know.
Well, why is that right, Bob? It's your government.
I don't know. I don't know. And I fess up that I don't have an answer, Chris. But I'm sure it's something that you and other people will be exploring.
It's a complete gravy train for lawyers. And these poor people are stuck there. Many of them went bankrupt dealing with an unfair prosecution. And the money is going to the pockets of lawyers, not them.
Absolutely. And look, on a wider point that I think, GB News makes pretty regularly, you're looking at the quality of management of senior people in this country, especially in civil service roles or quasi-political roles. And it seems to me that as long as you can talk the woke language, you get away pretty much with anything until you really get found out.
OK, moving forward...
I just wish we'd had better quality...
Moving forward, Bob, to the next stage. OK, so the pardon comes. What about the compensation? 150 million you mentioned so far. There's going to be many, many multiples of that, you'd assume. Now, yesterday we had Lee Anderson in here. He was like saying, well, maybe the taxpayer should pick up this bill. Taxpayers won't like that. Why should the taxpayers have to step in and clear up the mess created by Fujitsu, an international conglomerate with very deep pockets? Surely they should be the one that should get involved and pay this package. And as a supplier to the government, many massive contracts, you have a lot of leverage to do something about that.
You're right. I think, look, it's not for me to decide how much money it should be, because this is something that's got to be... I can't just name a figure out of thin air. But clearly, Fujitsu, poor software, have got to take responsibility. And likewise, the Post Office for not even bothering to check until, taking way too long before they admitted fault as well. So between the two of them, they've got to cough up and they've got to fess up. And with Fujitsu, I think, look, they've got off pretty lightly so far. So I think some of that pressure and some of that attention should be on them. But again, going forward, I hope the Post Office learns about this and actually starts much more to respect postmasters and mistresses and gives them a better deal now as well. Chris?
It's down to believing people, not computers. That's the failure here, that people who are upstanding members of the community were just not believed by the powers that be. And I think that's the heart of it, and that's why it's so deeply embarrassing for the establishment. But with Fujitsu, do you think it's right, maybe, that all contracts should stop being let to that company until it can account for its actions properly? I know there's an inquiry going on, and they may not want to get ahead of that. But is that the answer?
So, Chris, I don't know what contracts they've got. If they've got contracts with the Met Office or with DEFRA, I mean...
That's part of the problem, that they're so involved right now in government business, it might damage the work of government to withdraw them from...
No. I mean, taking responsibility for one element is different from basically cutting them out of government. This is not Huawei. Look, I find this as a backbench MP, I find this as frustrating as everybody. I'll give you another slightly unrelated example. When we were told repeatedly that Huawei was a private company. You know, in Parliament, ministers were saying that. And it is so frustrating when you have ministers in whatever guise and whatever party saying things that you and I, as sort of people in the street, so to speak, just know not actually to be true.
Well, Huawei, of course, a telecoms company.
It's a slightly different case. But
And the issue was their links to the Chinese state.
Thanks, Chris. So, yeah, we just need... this is why judgment and common sense comes into this. And this is why, you know, Ed Davy's role, if he just said, look, I made the wrong judgment calls on this, fine. But the way he just pathetically hides, and other Lib Dems as well, he's not the only one, there's 3 of them, they sort of basically say, I was misled by my civil servants. OK, well, that's at that point you just say, yeah, maybe I need to question you a bit harder. Maybe I need to meet with these other people. Maybe I need to get a second opinion. I'm not going to meet you guys, you're the victims, because actually my civil servants don't want me to, so I won't. That is weakness.
Now, Bob,
and that is exactly what you should be doing as a minister.
Bob, it's fair to say that no political party has come out of this particularly showered in glory.
No, but our backbenchers did the right thing. James Arbuthnot did the right thing. Nadeem Zawi did the right thing.
But Kevin Jones, who's been a lot of work on this Labour Party, spoke to you earlier, pointed out correctly that the Tories nominated Venables for her CBE. In fact, she was put forward to be the Bishop of London long after these allegations had already come out. But I want to turn to Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer's role as a Director of Public Prosecutions at this time is coming into question. Should he have intervened at that time?
OK, look, I think we're slightly getting to the place where hindsight is a wonderful thing. With the use of hindsight, clearly he should have done. Keir Starmer, his role... I mean, what slightly gets me about Keir Starmer now is that the Labour Party have said, judge Keir by all the cases he took on. Well, he didn't take on Jimmy Savile. He supported the INLA, so the even more extreme Irish Republican outfit than the IRA. And clearly, he didn't do the right thing here. So I don't think his judgment actually comes across. If you look at his time as public prosecutor, in some things he did the right thing, but in others, I think his judgment was seriously lacking.
It's not entirely clear, though, is it, Bob, that the DPP could intervene in a private prosecution? I mean, I think it's...
No, you're right.
So these are private prosecutions led by the Post Office Limited. He has to have duty to go in there to intervene. It wasn't his team of lawyers doing the prosecutions, it was a private company. So I think on this one, it's not as clear-cut as you're saying.
No, fair enough. I'll happy to take your steer on that.
OK, gentlemen, we have to leave it there. Fantastic debate, very lively, of course, and great breaking news line. As ever, we've had loads and loads and loads of emails about this. I haven't seen you get this animated about a topic since Brexit, and that's saying something. Many of you have been getting in touch about the Post Office scandal. Josie says this: Ed Davy should be forced to give up his knighthood. A petition should be started. I'm sure it will get thousands of signatures. It's shameful that he is not willing to accept any part of this scandal. And keep up the excellent coverage on this and getting it into the public arena. No problem at all. And well done, of course, to Chris Hope for continuing to push on this. Isabel says this: please, can someone ask what Fujitsu's staff were doing? Logging on remotely to various postmasters' computer systems and manipulating figures, whilst leaving no trace of what they were doing. Isabel, I'm sure these questions will be put forward as this scandal rolls forward. And Ronnie says this: Paula Venables is playing the long game, giving up her CBE to make herself look moral, then being shortlisted for a role as Bishop of London, which propels her straight into the House of Lords. Chris, do you want to react to that one?
Well, it's one thing. The odd thing about a CBE is, although you hand it back and say you don't want it, you don't lose it until it's annulled. So what has to happen next, and it's the odd, this is the way our honours system works, is the Honours Forfeiture Committee has to sit and remove the honour from her.
I would say, look, whatever I think we're slightly in the case of she's been damned if she does and damned if she doesn't. She's done the right thing and she's accepted her moral responsibility. Let's see if Ed Davy does the same. If not, I'm sure in the next 6 months there'll be a lot of people reminding him.
OK, and finally on this topic, Alan says this: does Sir Ed Davy feel that because he was lied to by the Post Office, he should not shoulder any blame for the injustice that has taken place? Surely he had a duty of care to the Post Office employees to carry out his own investigations into those allegations at the time. Bob Seeley nodding so hard his head might drop off. Next to me, Bob Seeley, thank you very much for coming in. Chopper, superb as ever. You get lots more on that story on our website. And thanks to you, gbnews.com is the fastest growing national news website in the country. It's got breaking news and all the brilliant analysis you've come to expect from GB News. So thank you very much for that.